Hello everybody and welcome back to the video. To another video. This is like my second time recording this. I'm already tired. Yeah. First time I didn't actually record. It was a traumatic experience. I'm kidding. Don't take that to heart. We're gonna start this off by saying I have asked for permission. I have full permission to read this story. Full permission. Let's begin. His Reasons by AshleyH713. Chapter 1. Katsuki Bakugo was born at 1:10 a.m. on a rainy... Messed this up the first time too. On a rainy Friday morning. When they weighed him, he turned out to be irregularly strong for a newborn. His parents cried for joy, but soon realized everything was not okay. Amira Bakugo was born at 1:20 a.m., and right away they noticed a drastic change between the two infants. Whereas Katsuki, never mind, I'm tired, obviously, was abnormally strong, Amira appeared weak and stick-thin, almost purple and blue around the sides of her face. The doctors noticed this and sprang into action quickly, grabbing the child and attaching all sorts of tubes and wires while she remained silent. The parents raced forward and asked what was wrong, but the doctors were too busy trying to keep the newborn alive. That was the start of Katsuki and Amira Bakugo's very different lives. After they stabilized her, Amira was forced to stay in the hospital so that doctors could monitor her health. It seemed her body was extremely unstable, and they knew exactly why. They didn't talk about it, though, especially in front of Katsuki. Katsuki himself was stronger than ever, though, living his life like a normal preschooler would. He didn't pay any mind to his sister, and just lived as he pleased. He would sometimes visit her, though, mostly because he was forced to by his mom. His mother pulled him inside the building, practically dragging him. Now listen here, young man, you are going to visit your sister, and you are going to like it. Although Bakugo had other plans. I don't want to. It's going to be so boring, and she just sits there, not doing anything. I'm supposed to go play with my friends. Let me go. But the woman wouldn't budge, and soon enough they were face to face with Amira. She just smiled and he couldn't help but notice the tubes and machines hooked to her. Brother! Bakugo scoffed as his mom pushed him into the room. Pulling him even further, his mom smiled back. Hello, sweetie. How are you feeling? She looked down for a moment before nodding her head, pretending to flex her non-existent muscles. I'm good, Mommy. Soon I'll be all better. There was a sadness in their mother's eyes, then... Of course you will. Now, Mommy's gonna go downstairs and get something delicious, okay? Katsuki, watch your sister. He grumbled at this point. Ugh, do I have to? This caused her to narrow her eyes. Katsuki? Rolling his own eyes, Katsuki scoffed again. Fine, just hurry up. Seeming happy with that, she left the two kids alone, hoping that this time would be good for them. They were practically twins, after all. Once the door shut, Katsuki strolled up to Amira and put his small boot on her bed, looking rather annoyed. So, what's your deal? Why are you stuck here? Putting a hand on her IV, Amira just sighed. They said I can't leave. Being a young kid, Katsuki didn't understand her statement. So you can't even go outside or anything? What about going hunting for beetles or play superhero games? Amira shook her head. No, the mean doctor said I have to stay because I could get hurt really bad. Crossing his arms across his chest, he replied, how boring. So what do you do in here then? Just stare at the walls? She seemed to find this funny. Sometimes I think about what my quirk will be. This got him excited. Extending his legs, Katsuki stood up on the chair next to him, his fists out in exhilaration. I already know my quirk is going to be the best, so don't even think you can beat me. I'm going to be the best of the best, like All Might. At the name, Amira peered up. You know All Might? I see him on TV all the time. Brother, it would be good to be like him. That's what it says. He nodded his head in agreement. Hell yeah, I'm going to be the best. Laughing manically at his own statement, their mother peeked in and couldn't help but smile at the two. It seemed she was worried for nothing. A couple years later, Bakugo was sitting in kindergarten when he felt a small spark ignite in his fingertips. Where the hell did it go? All of his classmates turned and gasped in awe at what they were seeing. Even the teacher seemed impressed. Oh, congratulations, Bakugo. You got your quirk. And a wonderful one it is. Looking down at his hands, the entire class cheered, and he felt amazing. Finally, after all these years, he was finally going to be the best. Then he remembered something he once heard in class. Leaning over to his teacher, Bakugo questioned, Teacher, is it true that twins get their quirks around the same time? She looked confused, but answered anyway. Yes, that is true usually. Why do you ask, Bakugo? It was obvious she didn't know about Amira. Heck, no one knew about her. It wasn't really something he brought up in class, and because she was in the hospital, that meant she basically didn't exist in the outside world. No reason. But internally, he was excited to show off his quirk to his family, silently hoping that what the teacher said was true. Maybe then she wouldn't be so weak. Rushing to the hospital, Bakugo threw the door open and Amira just looked confused. Brother, what are you doing here? She didn't seem any different than usual, but that didn't faze him much. Instead, running up to her and shouting, Amira, look, I got my quirk. I really hope I'm saying that name right. Probably not. He let his palms ignite with sparks, and her eyes went wild. Whoa, cool. That's so cool, brother. Nodding his head at the ego stroke, her brother stood proud. Right? Now I can be the best of the best. The most powerful. Amira smiled, happy for her own brother, but it didn't last long. Her eyes then shifted from him to her very skinny arms, muttering under her breath, I wish I could get my quirk too. He then stopped, racing towards her bedside. I heard my teacher say that twins get their quirks around the same time. If you really focus, I'm sure you'll get yours, also. Seeming rather uncertain, Amira raised her brow. You sure? The doctor said... Bakugo cut her off. Screw what they say. You're my sister, which means you also gotta be strong. Just try. A moment of silence filled the air, and Amira thought about what the doctors told her, that she might never get her quirk because of her weak body. But on the other hand, she didn't want to disappoint her brother, who had never come to see her willingly before. Nodding her head, Amira squeezed her eyes and tried to focus, willing her quirk to come to the surface. She didn't know exactly how to do it, but all she could think about was making her brother proud. Suddenly she felt an odd heat in her fingertips, and looked down to find them glowing a swirly gold color. This wasn't the power her mother or father had. Eyes widening, Amira gasped and got her brother's attention. Brother, look, I did it! I got my quirk! Bakugo just stared in awe at her power and watched her laugh. A small tear coming to her eyes. Does this mean I can be a hero too? Her brother was about to smile when something unexpected happened. Amira's eyes grew panicked as she began coughing excessively, heaving heavily and curling over her sheets in desperation. The glow on her fingertips was gone, and Katsuki didn't know what to do. Hey, what's wrong with you? She didn't answer, though, as she put a shaky hand to her mouth, only to find blood on her palm. Suddenly, a dozen doctors and nurses came running in, dragging huge machines with them and rolling them to the side before eyeing the girl. She seems to be having an attack. We need a C34 now. What is wrong with me? They began hooking up a ton of wires to her while her body shook and seized underneath them, her small hand grasping the railing for dear life. Now noticing the boy, one of the doctors put his hand out in anger. "Someone get this boy out of here. We need to operate." Bakugo felt a hand on his arm, pulling him away from the scene, but he wasn't having it, choosing to curse at the woman. "Hey, what are you doing? Get your hands off me!" But given his small size, he was easily pushed out as the door locked behind him. After about 30 minutes, his mother showed up looking panicked, and the doctors pulled her into a private room so they could talk. Young Katsuki couldn't live with that, though, and quietly followed his mother so he could hear the conversation the two were about to have. Although, knowing what he knew now, he wished he didn't back then. His mother put a hand on her mouth, whispering out her words. "How is she?" The doctor picked up a file from his desk and opened it carefully. "It seems we were able to stabilize her condition. Finally. Her attack was caused by her quirk awakening." Her eyes grew wide in shock. "Isn't that a good thing, though? You said she might not ever get her quirk." Shaking his head, the doctor sighed. "Normally, yes, getting a quirk is a wonderful thing, but in Amira's case, it's very dangerous." Not understanding, his mother spoke up. "Dangerous? How so?" Pulling out another file, he showed the woman the statistics. In order to be able to sustain your quirk, you must have a strong body. The more powerful the quirk, the more the body must work to maintain it, so it doesn't shut down. In Amira's case, though, her body was so weak from birth that using her quirk could potentially end her life. That's why we didn't want her to have one. Katsuki remained frozen at his words. What did he mean his sister couldn't use her quirk? Just because she was so weak? His mother made a choking sound with her throat and put a shaking hand to her forehead. "Oh God, so that means she can't even use her quirk?" The doctor just simply shook his head. "I'm afraid not. As you know, Amira was born weak because in the womb, Katsuki took most of her energy and nutrients. It's a sad fact, but it's not uncommon with twins. One just comes out stronger, and that one happened to be Katsuki. His quirk will surely be extra powerful because of that." Leaning against the wall, Katsuki seemed dumbfounded at what he was saying. His hands grew unnaturally numb as the boy tried to process everything. The reason that his sister was like this was because of him. No, that wasn't his fault. Yet it seemed like all the pieces were slowly sticking together. The reason she couldn't step foot outside, the reason she couldn't play with anyone else, the reason she couldn't even use her quirk, there was no mistaking it. It was because of him, unknowingly. His sister was sick because of him. Because of his need to be better than everyone. The very realization made him sick inside. Feeling the bile in his throat, Katsuki ran away from the conversation, unable to hear any more, and fell to the ground, heaving at the reality that had smacked him in the face. Time and time again, he made fun of her for being stuck in the hospital and being weak, but the ugly truth was, he was the one that made her that way. Everything was his fault. A couple nurses came rushing to him and asked what was wrong, but Katsuki couldn't hear them over the sound of his own despair. What had he done? Because Bakugo got sick, his father picked him up and brought him home, although the child had far too many other things on his mind. He didn't eat much dinner and just crawled to bed without any resistance, which was rare for him. Usually his parents would have to fight him every night to go to bed. Laying down, all he could think about was Amira. Katsuki wondered silently if she would be okay. He hoped so, or else he didn't know if he could live with himself anymore. If only he wasn't so stubborn in the womb and didn't take all of Amira's strength. Then she would be able to run and jump and go outside like everyone else. It seemed almost selfish that he bragged about his life to her, knowing everything now. Gritting his teeth, Bakugo sat up from his bed, throwing the sheets off of him, and stood up, a new sense of passion burning in his eyes. He then realized that since he took all of Amira's power, that he wouldn't let it go in vain. He would use that power to protect her and become the strongest #1 hero the world had ever seen. Throwing the window open on the right, Bakugo sucked a deep breath in and screamed at the top of his lungs, all the pain and regret flowing out all at once. I am going to be #1 hero, damn it. I will be the #1 hero. He knew he had to, for her, and for himself. Shortly after that night, it was announced that Amira would study in America so that she could get away from everything and hopefully have a new start. The medicine over there was also better for her sickness, so everyone thought it was best. Bakugo hadn't seen her since that night, and he wanted to keep it that way. He'd much rather shoved her existence and guilt so far down until he could hardly see it. Yes, this was better. Although one day Bakugo and his friends were playing near his street when they caught a glimpse of a familiar shade of blonde hair watching them. He turned to her, and that sickening feeling rose up again in his stomach. All the painful memories and guilt rushing back. One of his friends seemed to notice her as well and pointed. Hey, who is that? She looks just like you, Bakugo. Another friend snickered at her appearance. Yeah, except she's like a twig. Are you related? The two twins stared at each other for a couple moments, and Amira opened her mouth to say something when Bakugo cut her off. No, they couldn't know about what he did. I've never seen her before in my life. You really think I could be related to someone that weak? Let's just go. Then he turned his back on her and walked away, not bothering to see her expression. He didn't want to see the damage he'd caused. His friends also agreed. That's true. Besides, Bakugo is an only child, remember? Nodding his head, the other friend understood. Yeah, that's true. I don't know what I was thinking. Let's go play superheroes. Then they all hurried behind their leader and left the street, leaving Amira, I'm going to say Amira because I think that's what I've been saying. Leaving Amira alone once again. And that was it. That was the last time Bakugo saw Amira, and that was the last time he had to worry about her. To him, she was just something that didn't exist. Or so he thought. 10 years later. Love doing that voice. I suck it, but I love doing the voice. Kicking off her shoes, Amira raced into the house and past the dorm leader, who shouted at her angrily. Amira, slow down. You're going to push yourself too hard. Amira just looked back and smiled at the leader before putting her hands up in forgiveness. Sorry, Vanessa, but I got something waiting for me. Turning the corner, Vanessa just sighed. This girl, I swear. Running down the hall, Amira stopped when she reached her destination, the mailbox. She then took the key out of her pocket and started muttering, Please, 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 let it be here. Please, please. Amira put the key in the lock before opening it slowly, squinting her eyes in case she didn't want to see. She paused for a moment when she saw a white envelope with a red seal on the back. Amira squeaked in delight at this, shouting happily, It's here! Oh my god, it's here! What the fuck? The rest of the dorm shushed her, but Amira didn't really seem to care, just putting her paper to her lips and smiling. Then, ripping open the paper, a little hologram message popped up with All Might shouting gleefully, Hello, young Amira Bakugo. It is with great excitement and pleasure that I welcome you to UA. Being one of the 5 recommendations this year, we expect great things from you. But remember, it isn't just about status, but rather heart and determination. That is all. Can't wait to see you there. Alright, transmission out. The transmission then cut off, and Amira couldn't help but smile gleefully. Finally, she was going to UA. Next chapter. Chapter 2. Bakugo's day just kept getting worse. First, he had to sit through his teacher's usual boring lecture while his childhood annoyance, Deku, muttered on about being a hero or some crap like that, as if he would ever be a hero. Deku was just a quirkless idiot. And now, to make matters worse, he was being scolded by his friends for going too rough on that useless nerd. Hey, Bakugo, you didn't have to go that far with the kid. Bakugo just shoved his hands in his pockets, though, not seeing the point. Shut up. When have you all become such wet blankets? I was just trying to get it through his thick, stupid head. They were clearly overreacting. All he did was burn his little notebook and throw it out the window. It's not like he committed a murder or anything like that. He had done far worse when they were kids. It's his fault for getting in my way. Feeling a sense of rage out of the corner of his eye, Bakugo sees a bottle on the ground and kicked it, having the object collide with a pole next to him. His friend tried to reassure him to stop another anger blast from the boy, shrugging. Don't let it get to you. Of course it didn't work, though, as Bakugo recalled the conversation they just had in the classroom. That dumb Deku was so stupid, saying he wanted to be a hero even though it was impossible. He's an idiot, dreaming like a kid. Just watching him pisses me off. His friends laughed nervously and pointed away from them. Hey, you want to hit the arcade before we go home? Get your mind off it? Bakugo thought for a moment, before slowly nodding his head, still angry, though, of course. Suddenly, the ground shook below them and a new voice emerged from the silence. My, what a wonderful quirk. It's totally the wrong voice. Turning sharply, Bakugo and his friends' faces fell in terror. Standing behind them was a dark green, formless blob. There was no doubt about it. That was a villain. Obviously tired. Bakugo barely had the time to react before the slime dashed to the boy and swallowed his entire body whole. Yeah. This day just kept getting worse. Stretching her arms and giving a slight yawn, Amira stepped off the plane to finally see the sights of Japan. It had been so long since she'd been there. She grabbed her suitcase next to her and popped up the handle before rolling it along the sea of busy people and carts trying to get from one terminal to the next. Just then, her phone began to ring in her pocket, and Amira pulled it out to answer. Hey, sorry, I just landed. Japan is so much prettier than I remember it to be. The voice, on the other hand, didn't sound pleased, though. I didn't call you to hear about the sights. You took the supply before you left, right? You know what happens if you don't take those pills. Sighing loudly, Amira asked back, patting her pockets just to be sure. Yep, still there. I know, I have them. Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. The voice seemed to sigh back as well. Obviously, he wasn't in the mood. Well, that's to be decided. Amira stopped, feeling a slight twitch in her eye. Had he just insulted her? Ha ha, very funny. Now, as much as I would love to catch up some more, I gotta get the next bus. See ya, Doc. She just got a grunt in response before the line went dead, but that was to be expected. The doc didn't usually love extended conversations. That worked for her, though. Putting the phone back in her pocket, she started to look for bus schedules when the TV next to her spoke loudly. We are here in downtown where a sludge-like villain has appeared. It has already attacked dozens of indoor shopping centers and started fires in multiple areas. The heroes have just been sighted on the scene. Amira stopped at this, and her eyes shifted to the screen. A slug-type villain? Slug? That must be really tricky. Well, it didn't involve her. Just as she thought that, the reporter perked up again. We are back. I'm just getting news that the villain has taken a middle school student hostage while wreaking havoc. She shook her head, thinking that was rather unfortunate, and turned away from the screen when the next words stopped her in her tracks. We just got word that the student in question is Bakugo Katsuki from... Alder? Nope. Junior high. We have visuals now. Amira's eyes widened as she turned back towards the screen and saw her brother fighting against the slug villain with all his power. Oh no, anyone but him. Taking a step forward, she pushed against the crowds who were very unhappy to be moved. Hey, what are you doing, little girl? Given her short stature, it was hard to see, but there was no denying it. That was her brother, and he was in trouble. Not thinking about anything else, Amira pushed back through the crowds, grabbing her suitcase and sprinting down the halls of the airport to a nearby taxi below. She quickly gave him the address on the TV, and then, without a plan, Amira rushed to the location. This certainly wasn't the situation she imagined to meet Katsuki again, but it would have to do. Bakugo felt the slug swallowing him whole, seeping into his skin, but there was no way in hell he was going to be defeated by such filth. Fighting as much as he could, the boy screamed, trying to tear himself away from the villain, igniting his explosions against the slime. I won't let sewage like this swallow me. No matter how hard he pushed, his body, hands, and feet were still stuck to the creature. It just laughed at the struggle. What power! I've hit the jackpot. With this power, I'll be able to beat him. The slug grew closer and swallowed up Bakugo, proving his attempt useless. Was this really how he was going to go? By some low-level villain? It was stupid. He paused when he saw a flash of green and locked eyes with Deku, who looked absolutely terrified. Why was he even here at a time like this? He was useless. Slime started to seep its way into his mouth, and Bakugo began to choke on the substance. The burning liquid filled his throat until he could barely breathe. Feeling his eyesight going, Deku's green hair stood out amongst the blurry blobs, as for the first time in his life he wished for help. He didn't want to die. Not like this. Deku felt the unsaid words and then, without thinking, sprung into action, feeling an overwhelming need to save his friend. He ignored the other heroes calling out to him as the boy ran straight up to the monster and threw his backpack in its face, causing Bakugo to break his mouth free. Coughing out the sludge, the images were just blurry around him. Deku, why are you here? Deku himself was frantic, though, clawing at the sludge with absolutely no plan. My legs just moved on their own. I don't know. It's just you looked like you were calling for help. Bakugo's eyes widened at this when the villain recovered, throwing an explosion towards the green-haired boy in anger. Don't get in my way. Deku closed his eyes and waited for the impact, but nothing happened. Yes, it was true that there was a huge explosion, but it was almost like it bounced off of him. He opened his eyes only to find that his skin was sparkling gold and his entire body was glowing for some reason. What? Although he didn't have to wait long, as another voice echoed behind him. She seemed to be out of breath. Sorry for the wait. There was traffic. Deku looked up and found a blonde-haired stranger looking back at him. Hey, are you okay? Nodding his head, the girl smiled and threw her hand out. Good. Now I can deal with you. You know, I just wanted a nice, relaxing first day, but we can't even have that now. Let's go, Katsuki. Now, Katsuki, go. Now let God... Oh my god. You know, I just wanted a nice, relaxing first day, but we can't even have that. Now, let Katsuki go. The villain just seemed amused and raised up to defeat this newcomer. You shouldn't have messed with me, little girl. But the stranger just smiled, snapping her fingers. Suddenly, the gold matter swirled around the three of them, creeping up the sides of form some sort of dome, so that the villain can't escape. The sludge hit against the dome and screamed, its body now halfway burned from the impact. What? Then her gaze fell upon her brother and Deku. Her brother and Deku watched her eyes light up bright red as she pointed a finger towards Bakugo. Bakugo's skin then started glimmering like Deku's, and slowly the sludge slipped off his body, almost like the gold coating was protecting him. Once his entire body was covered, Bakugo flopped out of the monster and onto the floor below, coughing erratically at the after effects. He didn't know what had happened, but he was free. Amira then put her arm down, and Deku could notice the slight shaking in her hand. Was she okay? The monster sprung to life again, this time with his intent set on Amira. Little girl, you made me lose my jackpot. Now you'll have to take his place. Racing towards her, Amira pulled Deku behind her and braced for impact with something else. When something else stopped them. It's fine now. Why? Because I am here. They looked back only to find All Might holding the attack back from the two of them. Then in one swing, he punched the villain so hard that it went skyrocketing towards the sky, never to be seen again. The crowd was silent for a moment before cheering in absolute delight at their favorite hero. Amira just seemed dumbfounded. She stuttered on her words, trying to form a sentence. All Might? Is that really you? Deku nodded his head excitedly, noticing another fan right away. Yes, isn't he amazing? Amira nodded her head while answering, only to find her attention back on her brother. He looked like he was having difficulty trying to stand. She raced over to him, placed her hand up to help. Are you okay? Here, take my hand. Slightly touching his shoulder, Bakugo growled and slapped her away while shouting, What the hell are you doing? Don't fucking touch me. Deku didn't like this response. Come on, Kachan. She just saved your life. Amira seemed shocked for a moment before another voice interrupted her. You were quite brave out there, little miss. Thank you so much for helping, even though that was very dangerous. Might I ask your name? Turning around to find All Might, Amira tried to remain calm, bowing respectively. Thank you for your compliment. My name is Amira Bakugo, and it is an honor to finally meet you. At her name, Bakugo sharply turned his head towards hers, his eyes growing hollow. No, it couldn't be. This was his sister? Thinking back to the last time he saw her, she looked completely different. Sure, she still looked thin and short, but now she looked so much older. That guilt suddenly seeped in again, seeing her height. He did that. Deku heard the name as well and looked confused. I'm sorry. My headphones are dying. I'm sorry, did you say Bakugo? Nodding her head, Amira put her hands on her hips, pointing to her brother. Yep, I'm his sister. And you would be? Staring into her eyes, Deku blushed. Now that he mentioned it, she did kind of look like Kachan. Oh, I'm Deku. I mean, Midoriya Izuku. Nice to meet you, Baku-chan. At the name, Amira grimaced. You can just call me Amira. It would be weird and confusing to have two Bakugos around. But his got him even more flustered. Could he really call her by her first name? Okay, Amira-chan? She just smiled at this, but it slowly lowered when Katsuki spoke out. What the hell are you doing here? I thought you were in America. Giving herself a breath of courage, Amira laughed nervously. Yeah, about that. I'm here to attend school. This made him raise an eye. School? Amira lifted her hand behind her head and gave another nervous laugh. Yeah, see, I wanted to tell you this later, but guess the cat's out of the bag now. Not liking the tension, Bakugo ran up and grabbed Amira by the collar. Because she was so short, he was able to lift her off the ground. Just spit it all out already, damn it. Then looking him straight in the eyes, her face grew one of utter determination. I'm going to UA. At her words, Bakugo's hand went numb. There was no way she'd go to UA. From what we remembered, using her quirk could kill her. Bullshit, you'll never pass the entrance exam. Letting her go, Amira pulled out the letter from her pocket and flashed it in his face. I don't have to. I was recommended. Not believing what he was seeing, he grabbed the letter, and sure enough, what she has said was true. How was that even possible? Crumbling the paper in his hands, Bakugo lit it on fire before tossing it away. You're not going. Amira's eyes widened as she raced forward and grabbed the piece. I'm sorry, I think you forgot who just saved your life. You're not my mom, Katsuki. In fact, she already said yes, so I'm going. This got him furious. She knew how dangerous it was. Why was she being so reckless? Reaching his hand down, Bakugo grabbed onto her collar again, this time with his quirk fully ignited. He needed to shake some sense into this girl. You go to that damn school and tell them you are dropping out before I kick your ass into next week, brat. You think you can compete with me? I'm going to be the stronger hero, and I don't want a weakling like you bringing me down, so drop out. Dangling her feet off the ground, Amira struggled against her brother, but still didn't back down. I'm stronger than I once was, Katsuki. I'm going to UA. The determination in her eyes was off-putting to even Bakugo, who just sighed roughly and let her go, the girl falling to the floor. If she was going to get herself killed, then it didn't concern him. Whatever. Do whatever the hell you want. Just stay out of my way, loser. Then he turned and left the scene while Amira brushed herself off. Looks like his ego didn't get any better. Well, that could have gone worse, she supposed. She suddenly saw a hand reach out of her and found Deku smiling. Hey, don't worry about him. Kachan is just Kachan. I think he's actually happy to see you, deep down. Amira accepted his hand and sighed, picking up the burned remains of her letter. I knew it wasn't going to go great. We're just too different. Deku's eyes saddened when he felt a hand on his shoulder. Young Midoriya, if I might have a word with you. My headphones are starting to piss me off because they're telling me it's dying. They turned to find All Might smiling at them, and Amira knew it was time to go. It's okay, go on. You're going to take the entrance exam for UA also, right? I hope we see each other again. She smiled, and Deku couldn't help but blush. He was never good with girls. Yes, maybe, I'll try my best, Baku-chan, Amira-chan. Amira just laughed at this and waved her hand away. See ya, Midoriya. Time had passed quickly, and soon it was time for the entrance ceremony before class started. Everyone filled the auditorium, eager to see just who the top 5 recommended first-year students were this year. It was a rare honor to be chosen. Amira entered the hall uncertain and fixed the red tie around her neck before finding someone with a clipboard and strolling up to them. Hello, I'm looking for the first-year recommended section, please. He looked down at her, giving her height, and chuckled a bit. Of course, follow me. She knew he was judging her just from that one look inside. It must have looked weird for one of the top recommended students to be so short and skinny. Usually they built up muscle for their quirks. Pulling the curtain back, he pointed to a chair that had the number 2 on it and answered, You can wait here. They will call you by rank in just a couple minutes. Amira nodded her head and sat down, eyeing the other students who just looked bored. Although what caught her eye most was the student on her left-hand side in the number 1 chair. He also looked bored, but there was something else about him. This boy's hair was oddly 2 different colors, one crimson and one white. He had his eyes closed in a rather stoic position, and there was also something up with his face. Noticing her staring, the boy opened his eyes and turned to her, causing her to panic. Oh crap, she couldn't let him know she was staring. That would be really weird. Rubbing the back of her head, Amira put her hand out and smiled to the stranger. Oh, hello. It's nice to meet you. My name is Bakugo Amira. He took one look at her hand and, instead of shaking it, he crossed his arms against his chest and muttered, Todoroki shoto. She suddenly felt stupid for putting her hand out and laughed nervously. Oh, I see. Well, it's nice to meet you, Todoroki. The boy just grunted in response, though, and Amira knew he didn't want to talk. Too bad her nerves got the best of her, though, and she couldn't shut her mouth. So you were recommended too? And the top recommended at that. I gotta say, that's pretty impressive. His eyes just looked distant at her statement before turning to her with utter determination. I'm going to win. Amira certainly was taken aback by that. Okay. Todoroki seemed confused by her statement, leaning on his chair. Don't you want to win also? That's why you got recommended, right? To be the best. His close contact made her feel really awkward as she put her hands up. Man, this boy certainly was intense. Well, not really. That's why I wanted to come here. That's not why I wanted to come here. God. Her answer seemed foreign to him. Then why? Looking closer at his eyes, she noticed them to be two different colors, one gray and one turquoise. It was like they were hypnotizing her into answering. They were so pretty. Amira watched Todoroki's face turn from one of intensity to one of pure embarrassment, and she started to realize why. Oh God, had she just called him pretty out loud? Please tell her that wasn't the case. But his eyes said otherwise, just looking confused and flustered. Oh no, she did say it out loud. Watching her own face light up, Amira began trying to fix the situation, backtracking hardcore. I don't really have a reason why or anything, I just... Covering his face, Todoroki avoided her gaze and muttered into the floor quietly. Weird. Amira opened her mouth again, but luckily was saved by one of the teachers calling down to them. Todoroki, you're up next. Get ready. She let out a huge sigh of relief when he stood from his seat and turned to leave, but not before she called back to him. Good luck! He stopped for a moment, and she thought she really must have looked stupid. First, she stared at this random boy, then she called his eyes pretty, and then she wished him good luck. What was wrong with her? The air hung in silence for a couple more seconds, before Todoroki just left without turning back to her. Yeah, that proved it. He thought she was a freak. Good job, Amira. She silently hoped that not all boys in UA were this intense, or her poor heart wouldn't be able to take it. Putting her head in her hands, Amira let out a frustrated groan at her own stupidity, which caught the eyes of the other recommended members. They really let in some weirdos this year. Soon it was time for her speech, and Amira wasn't ready after everything that happened. Still, she had to clear her head and focus. There was a reason she came to the school, after all. The teachers called down to her, and Amira smoothed out her skirt before stepping closer to the stage. She could hear President Mike introducing her, and Amira took a breath. His voice echoed through the halls. And now, we meet our number 2 most recommended student from this year's first year class, Amira Bakugo. The crowd cheered and gasped at her name, quickly figuring out that she was related to Katsuki. When she stepped on stage, she did have his red eyes and blonde hair, after all. That was already really rare. Katsuki watched his sister and scoffed. One of his friends whispered next to him, Hey, look at her. She's a hottie. Bakugo narrowed his eyes in anger and let out a small explosion near the guy's foot, causing it to catch on fire. Shut your damn mouth before I set your entire body on fire. The boy screamed and stopped talking as Amira walked up to the mic and smiled. Hello, my name is Amira Bakugo, and I hope to live up to your expectations this year. Please take care of me. All right. She then bowed and everyone clapped. Whispering filled the area. The number 2 most recommended is so small. I wonder how she even got accepted. She seems easy to beat. Bakugo ticked his brow at every comment before standing up and shouting to the entire auditorium. Would you all shut the hell up? I can't even hear through your damn whispers. Amira stopped when she heard that and couldn't help but smile. She wanted to believe he did that for her. She headed backstage after that and sighed a huge breath of relief. If today was any indication, this year was going to be really interesting. Okay, I have to stop at chapter 2. I had to read that little thing talking about it. Chapter 2 is the end. I'm hurting, so. Yep. Please check her out. She... What? Huh? I was following her. Wait, am I on? Okay. I'm not into the logged in. Wait, this one isn't logged in either. That's irritating. Okay. I was logged in, but now it's not. That's stupid. I'll have to log back in. Guess it logged me out. But whatever. Follow her. I follow her. Just obviously on an account. Tired. Okay. So we're gonna end the video here. You will hear me in the next video. Bye-bye.